Love for animals has often compelled people to do certain things, crossing the line. The story, The Adventures of Toto, is the story of a grandfather who is animal loving and is very fond of animals. And here in this story is the struggle of him keeping this animal as his pet. The story is written by Ruskin Bond, who is born in Punjab in India and has won the Sahitya Academy Award, the Padma Bhushan and the Padma Shri. I am Kapila here to read the story to you. Grandfather bought Toto from a Tonga driver for the sum of 5 rupees. The Tonga driver used to keep the little red monkey tied to a feeding trough, and the monkey looked so out of place there that grandfather decided he would add the little fellow to his private zoo. So the grandfather of the writer, he was really fond of animals, and when he saw the little red monkey there with the Tonga driver, he immediately thought that he would be adding that monkey to his private zoo. Toto was a pretty monkey. His bright eyes sparkled with the mischief beneath deep-set eyebrows, and his teeth, which were a pearly white, were very often displayed in a smile that frightened the life out of elderly Anglo-Indian ladies. But his hands looked dried up as though they had been pickled in the sun for many years. Yet his fingers were quick and wicked, and his tail, while adding to his good looks, grandfather believed a tail would add to anyone's good looks, also served as a third hand. He could use it to hang from a branch, and it was capable of scooping up any delicacy that might be out of reach of his hands. So this is the beautiful description that the writer has given to us of Toto the monkey, how beautiful he was and how he used the tail as his third hand, and how when he showed the teeth and had a broad smile there on the face, he would frighten the Anglo-Indian women, and he was very much loved by the grandfather. Grandmother always fussed when grandfather brought home some new bird or animal. So it was decided that Toto's presence should be kept a secret from her until she was in a particularly good mood. Grandfather and I put him away in a little closet opening into my bedroom wall, where he was tied securely, or so we thought, to a peg fastened to the wall. So a peg was fastened there to a wall, that we call a nail, a huge nail, that's a peg, a nail sort of a thing, that was fastened to a wall. There he was tied, and they thought that he was tied very securely. So there was a closet there in the author's room. There he was tied. And why he was tied there and kept there? Because every time a new animal or bird was brought there at home, then the grandmother didn't like, and she made fuss about it. A few hours later, when grandfather and I came back to release Toto, we found that the walls, which had been covered with some ornamental paper chosen by grandfather, now stood out as naked brick and plaster. The peg in the wall had been wrenched from its socket, and my school blazer, which had been hanging there, was in shreds. So he had taken out the threads, it was all torn and tattered, the blazer there, and even the peg that had come out, and the plaster, and that brick was seen because the ornamental paper also was scratched down by Toto. I wondered what grandmother would say, but grandfather didn't worry. He seemed pleased with Toto's performance. So whatever act was done by Toto over there, the mischievous act, that is being called as performance by the author here, because the grandfather really liked that performance. "He's clever," said grandfather. "Given time, I'm sure he could have tied the torn pieces of your blazer into a rope and made his escape from the window." So he really liked the performance because he liked the intelligence of the monkey, and he even told it to the author that if he would have been given some more time, he would have made a rope of the parts of the torn and tattered blazer, and then he would have escaped from the window. His presence in the house still a secret, Toto was now transferred to a big cage in the servants' quarters where a number of grandfather's pets lived very sociably together. A tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a tame squirrel, and for a while my pet goat. But the monkey wouldn't allow any of his companions to sleep at night, so grandfather, who had to leave Dehradun next day to collect his pension in Saharanpur, decided to take him along. So he was shifted to a big cage there, and still it was kept a secret from the grandmother. But what he would do, he would not let the other animals sleep there, and grandfather had to leave for Saharanpur the very next day, and he had to go there to collect his pension. So he thought that he would disturb the other animals there. And what are the names of the animals? That is, a pair of rabbits was there, his goat was there, there was a tiny squirrel also, and a tortoise. Okay, so all these animals were there. Unfortunately, I could not accompany grandfather on that trip, but he told me about it afterwards. A big black canvas kit bag was provided for Toto. This, with some straw at the bottom, became his new abode, his new house. It had become a black canvas bag was there. At the bottom of it was spread some straw, and in that grandfather took Toto there. He had to travel there, so he took Toto because he would not let the other animals live there. When the bag was closed, there was no escape. Toto could not get his hands through the opening, and the canvas was too strong for him to bite his way through. His efforts to get out only had the effect of making the bag roll about on the floor or occasionally jump into the air. So he could not escape, but because he was making efforts to escape all the time, what would happen? Either the bag would jump or the bag would roll there, but he could not bite the tough material that was there, and he could not open it. An exhibition that attracted a curious crowd of onlookers on the Dehradun railway platform. So now, because he was doing all those efforts, so the out of curiosity, the people there at the railway platform, they all looked at the bag. What was there in the bag? That it rolled, and it was jumping in the air. Toto remained in the bag as far as Saharanpur, but while grandfather was producing his ticket at the railway turnstile, Toto suddenly poked his head out of the bag and gave the ticket collector a wide grin. Wide grin is a wide smile he gave. Okay, he showed his teeth there while he was producing that ticket. And what is a turnstile? If you must have been to places where you have to when you are entering into a park, you have those slides that are there, and you will find it there, even there in the hotels and all, which slides in a circle, and partitions are there, and you slide through it. That is a turnstile. So there he produced the ticket. The poor man was taken aback, but with great presence of mind and much to grandfather's annoyance, he said, "Sir, you have a dog with you. You'll have to pay for it accordingly." In vain did grandfather take Toto out of the bag. In vain did he try to prove that a monkey did not qualify as a dog, or even as a quadruped. Toto was classified a dog by the ticket collector, and 3 rupees was the sum handed over as his fare. Then grandfather, just to get his own back, took from his pocket our pet tortoise and said, "What must I pay for this, since you charge for all animals?" The ticket collector looked closely at the tortoise, prodded it with his forefinger, gave grandfather a pleased and triumphant look, and said, "No charge, it is not a dog." So this is the conversation that was there. Because he was annoyed, the grandfather, that is why he did this act of producing the tortoise also, because he was taking the monkey as a dog. So he said, okay, if you are taking this monkey as, you are assuming it to be a dog, then what are you going to assume this tortoise as? And then he said, no charges for this, because this animal is not a dog. When Toto was finally accepted by grandmother, he was given a comfortable home in the stable where he had a companion, the family donkey Nana. On Toto's first night in the stable, grandfather paid him a visit to see if he was comfortable. To his surprise, he found Nana, without apparent cause, pulling at her halter and trying to keep her head as far as possible from the bundle of hay. So now grandmother also knew about Toto, and he was kept with Nana. The Nana is the name of the donkey there, which was their pet donkey. But he thought, the grandfather thought that they would be living comfortably, so he just went there to see, and what to his surprise he saw that the donkey there was keeping his head away from the bundle of hay that was there. Grandfather gave Nana a slap across her haunches, and she jerked back, dragging Toto with her. He had fastened onto her long ears with his sharp little teeth. So this was the reason why Nana was behaving in such a weird manner, because this Toto monkey had fastened onto her long ears with the sharp little teeth. Toto and Nana never became friends. A great treat for Toto during cold winter evenings was the large bowl of warm water given him by grandmother for his bath. He would cunningly test the temperature with his hand, then gradually step into the bath. First one foot, then the other, as he had seen me doing, until he was into the water up to his neck. So in the winters, that was a treat. It was like a gift for him, a party for him, that warm water was given to him for bath. So he would very cleverly check the water. First he would put the first feet and then the other, and this he had seen the author doing. And then he would lie down. Once comfortable, he would take the soap in his hands or feet and rub himself all over. When the water became cold, he would get out and run as quickly as he could to the kitchen fire in order to dry himself. If anyone laughed at him during this performance, Toto's feelings would be hurt and he would refuse to go on with his bath. One day, Toto nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive. So what he used to do, he used to imitate. He used to take the soap and put it on the hands and feet, and when the water it became cold, he used to run to the kitchen, and in front of the fire he would stand so that he may dry himself. And if anyone would laugh during all this process, then he would be ending that there only. Okay, he wouldn't like it and it would hurt him. And one day he would boil himself. How he would do that? Let us read it. A large kitchen kettle had been left on the fire to boil for tea, and Toto, finding himself with nothing better to do, decided to remove the lid. Finding the water just warm enough for a bath, he got in. With his head sticking out from the open kettle, this was just fine for a while, until the water began to boil. Toto then raised himself a little, but finding it cold outside, sat down again. He continued hopping up and down for some time until grandmother arrived and hauled him half-boiled out of the kettle. So he saw that kettle was there. He went inside because he touched the water. He saw it was okay. It was warm enough for him to take a bath, but it was on fire that he could not make out. And slowly and gradually, he felt the heat and he came out, but outside it was very cold. So again, he remained inside only, and then the water started to boil. And suddenly the grandmother came and she put him out of the kettle, and this is how she was able to save him from boiling. If there is a part of the brain specially devoted to mischief, that part was largely developed in Toto. He was always tearing things to pieces. Whenever one of my aunts came near him, he made every effort to get hold of her dress and tear a hole in it. So the mischievous acts that he did were too many. And one of the acts was that if any of the aunts would come there, he would try to get hold of their clothes or the dress and then tear it and make a hole in it. One day at lunchtime, a large dish of pulao stood in the center of the dining table. We entered the room to find Toto stuffing himself with rice. My grandmother screamed and Toto threw a plate at her. One of my aunts rushed forward and received a glass of water in the face. So the glass of water was thrown by Toto. A plate on the grandmother, and on the aunt, a glass of water was thrown. When grandfather arrived, Toto picked up the dish of pulao and made his exit through a window. We found him in the branches of the jackfruit tree, the dish still in his arms. He remained there all afternoon, eating slowly through the rice, determined on finishing every grain. And then, in order to spite grandmother, who had screamed at him, he threw the dish down from the tree and chattered with delight when it broke into 100 pieces. So this is how, he did the mischievous act. Because the grandmother had scolded and shouted at him, he threw the dish from there. The whole afternoon he was sitting there, every piece of grain he ate, he was all having that pulao over there. And after that, when he threw the dish down, it broke into pieces, and then he chattered happily. Chattered is the sound that is made by the monkeys. Obviously, Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for long. Even grandfather realized that we were not well-to-do and could not afford the frequent loss of dishes, clothes, curtains and wallpaper. So grandfather found the Tonga driver and sold Toto back to him for only 3 rupees. So he got it of 5 rupees, but he sold it only for 3 rupees because he knew that he could not afford all the mischievous acts that were done by Toto, and so he returned it back, even though he was an animal lover. Now let us do the question answers. Question 1. How does Toto come to grandfather's private zoo? Once when grandfather was in the market, he saw this Toto monkey tied to a food trough there near a Tonga driver. He got attracted to it and he bought that monkey from there. Question 2. Toto was a pretty monkey. In what sense is Toto pretty? Toto had sparkling eyes, he had pearly white teeth, he had a broad grin there. He also had a graceful tail that served as the third hand, and his hands were very quick and wicked, and he would also frighten away the Anglo-Indian women with his smile. Question 3. Why does grandfather take Toto to Saharanpur and how? It has got 2 parts, so I am answering the first part first. Grandfather took Toto to Saharanpur because he had to go there to collect his pension. He took Toto in a black canvas bag which had straw at its bottom. Why does the ticket collector insist on calling Toto a dog? Toto had grinned at the ticket collector, so he got annoyed and he insisted on calling him a dog because he did not want him to call it as a human. Question 4. How does Toto take a bath? And where has he learned to do this? Toto used to put his first feet in the huge bowl of warm water that was provided by grandmother, and then he would put his next feet inside, and then he would slowly lie down till the water reached his neck. Then he would take a soap and put that soap on his hands and legs. When the water would get cold, he would go run to the kitchen and stand in front of the fire there to dry himself, and if anybody would laugh in between, then his feelings would be hurt. He learned all this from the author. He had seen the author doing so. The next part is, how does Toto almost boil himself alive? One day, a big kettle was kept there on fire to boil the water for tea, and when Toto saw that, he put off the lid from there and he put his hand and he saw the water was warm enough to have a bath. So he went inside the kettle. Slowly the water became warm, but when he peeped outside, it was cold outside, so he remained inside the kettle only. Later, when the water started to boil, he started jumping there inside the kettle, and in time grandmother arrived there and saved Toto from being boiled. Next question. Why does the author say Toto was not the sort of pet we could keep for long? The author said that Toto was not the sort of pet they could keep for long, because every time he did a mischievous act, it would cost them a lot. They would lose a lot of things, dishes, curtains, wallpapers, etc., and they could not afford such losses. Now, the next question here is your homework. You have to write a paragraph on your pet and what mischievous acts does your pet do. Now, this was a story of an animal lover who had to leave the pet and return it back to the Tonga driver. Though he was an animal lover, we will meet with some other such animal loving stories. Till then, take care.